Are we ready to start reporting back, or you are cleaning up your presentations? Yeah, done, huh? Okay. Okay, I think just 2 minutes for the others to come in, and then we can start. Monica?
Good morning, everyone. How are you? How is everything going? How was the night, and did you manage to finish the presentations?
I think they did. That's the feedback we are getting. Yeah,
okay,
they are
great.
ready. Yeah, they are ready to present. So maybe we can start with the presentations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Because we are hoping to finish by 12 o'clock. If we can do the presentations, and then we can move to the last session. Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Perfect.
All right. Okay. Colleagues, which group is ready for the presentation? Yeah, same order. Or maybe what we do, Melat. Is Melat around? Okay. I think let's load the presentations on the laptop so that we can just move smoothly. I'm saying let's load the presentations on the laptop so that we can just move smoothly. Who has PowerPoints to present? If we can load them. A stick. Okay. I think let them come and show us. It will be easier. Yeah. You can come and show us. Yeah. Okay. Do you have it on a stick, Jacob? Are you doing a PPT? Do you have it on a stick? Oh. Any more presentations? There? Oh, there. So we've got this one. So maybe we can start. We only have this one and then this one. Oh, this one. No. This one. We got those two. So it's not from Jacob. I think Jacob, they are ready. That one. Yeah. Okay, when we get Jacob's one, we can start with the first three groups. Yeah. Will you be ready to start? Or you can start. Will this go? Yeah. Okay. No, no. Yeah, but let's put that one first so that it doesn't. I think it's easier when they're all on the laptop, then it flows better than you. Yeah, but she's coming. She's coming, so you can start when you are here.
Did it in the afternoon yesterday?
All right.
Oh, I hope we leave that to the assignment. We don't know.
I'm sure
We hope so. Yeah, I can see that, but I can hardly see this.
No, I think it will come here when you the next one, then it comes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess.
Okay. All right, colleagues, I think group one is ready to present. Monica, do you want to say anything, or we can just go straight into the presentations?
Let's go straight to the presentations and see
Right.
what are
Okay.
the solutions.
Okay, thank you. Over to you then.
Thank you. Good morning, colleagues. Sorry, my voice, I don't know today, my voice is a bit hoarse, but my team members decided that I should present, so I hope I'll be clear enough. Yeah. So we have that assignment where we were to now propose a submission to what should be done with regard to the dilemma of McMaster. What we are saying, the small background of the situation is that the implementation of the MPIC did not take place under the first regime, but then under the second regime with the president, it was now being implemented with a bit of criticism. There were cash transfers, conditional cash transfers, which were distributed in the central areas where there was majority support to the president. And of course, his campaign was based on the three pillars of the security, employment, and what was the other one again? And so he had proposed also the inclusion of the FARC rebel group on the round table, but of course that proposition was receiving, proposition was receiving some opposition. So the situation was that the people in the rural areas, in the periphery, are the ones that are mostly impoverished, living in extreme poverty with untapped natural resources. There's a huge gap of inequality where the central parts are much more developed and receiving the benefits. So the proposal then is to look at the principle of social justice that cannot take place without social inclusion. So what our group suggested McMaster should do is to present his proposal as an implementation tool for the president's developmental plans by framing it within the following pronouncements by the president, which were the three central campaign pillars, like I said earlier on: security, poverty reduction, and employment. The directive to incorporate specific MPI targets in the National Development Plan, and then the appointment of McKinsey and Company to work alongside the DNP to create a set of managerial tools that are capable of delivering on the CMPI targets in the National Development Plans. The arguments then to use is to say that the CMPI was developed to address the shortcomings in the tools that were used to implement the FA program in its current status. And the CMPI data showed that the households suffering the greatest number of deprivation came from the poorer departments in the periphery, in the rural areas. It also revealed that the tool used for targeting poor households was not identifying potential beneficiaries in the areas with the poorest populations. So since MPI targets are to be incorporated into the National Development Plan, it is only sensible that the implementation of social protection programs are aligned with what MPI suggests. So this redesign enhances effectiveness in the identification of those experiencing deprivation in Columbia's peripheral departments. So the approach to the president's poverty roundtable, and the proposal is that he maintains the FA program, which is the conditional cash transfers, in the regions currently receiving rather than withdrawing it. Because withdrawing it and redirecting it to the poorest affected areas will cause resistance. So in order to prevent discontent and exclusion and resistance, it is advised that the current conditional cash transfers still be maintained, and then to recommend for an increase in budget in order to allocate to the programs to allow the expansion to more impoverished and excluded regions, which means you make it now universal, that whilst these ones are receiving, the others should then also receive, but then you have an increased budget allocation or resource allocation to ensure that you also reach out to the rural areas that are mostly impoverished. And also, because the findings were to say that there's a lot of untapped natural resources, is to then outline infrastructural development and harnessing of those untapped natural resources in the impoverished Western region to boost economic activities and create employment, which will then also speak to those pillars of employment creation which were the ones based on which the president won his election. So yeah, that was the presentation from Group 1. Thank you.
Group 2? Monica, so we do all the presentations and then we'll have the discussion afterwards,
yes.
Right?
Yes. Can you just make sure that you share where the presentation is shared? Because now I see the PPT, but it doesn't move.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Morning, colleagues. Just want to go maybe. Yeah, no, I'm presenting Group 2. We are now Group 2, because they are Group 1. Yeah. What should McMaster do? It's the first question which was posted. Redesign familiar and that FA program for peripheral regions, targeting area with highest level of multidimensional poverty currently underserved by the FA. Then the second one will be the improved targeting tools like the CISBEN to enhance accuracy to identify and reach deprived household in those areas or in those regions. Comprehensive analysis of FA programs, then present successes and challenges and impact on reducing multi-dimensional poverty. Then the last one, to address urban and rural inequality gap, highlight specific area needing redesign to bridge disparities between urban and rural areas. And then the second question was, how should McMaster approach the president and the poverty roundtable? He must maybe highlight urban and rural disparities by poverty rates, where urban is 66% and 6.6%, and then the rural area where it's 22.8%. Then assess the FA programs, successes and limitations, effective but outdated design, particularly the inadequate for rural areas. And then emphasize the need for redesign, target rural populations and vulnerable groups, example like indigenous and Afro-Colombians. Then the last one is align with President Sando's social justice goals to address the rural-urban inequalities for sustainable peace and development. Then our last question was, which argument should McMaster use to explain his position? Advocate for FA programs redesign, address current shortcomings to better serve Colombian poorest regions, technical improvement, enhance targeting system accuracy to reach deprived regions. Current system fails to identify many beneficiaries. Social justice imperative, address rural-urban poverty gap, crucial for social justice, align with President Sando's peace through equality vision. Long-term peace sustainability, reduce inequality, vital for engaging group like FARC in peace process and preventing future conflict. Political strategy acknowledge risk, framed redesign as essential for sustainable national development and promoting equitable progress. And then data-driven approach, use multidimensional poverty index, MPI, data to identify FA underperformance area. Evidence FA impact on education, health, child development. And then the last one, focus shift to rural areas and highlight necessarily for reallocating resources to better serve the rural communities. Yeah, that's all. That's the
Group 2, you've been represented well. No addition? All right, thank you. I think that's group 3, right? Okay, you can come, Amos. How are you? You can start the presentation as
Good morning. Good morning, Monica.
Good morning.
Yes, this assignment was during that time. You always remind us whether we are awake or not. So we were struggling between in the starting of it was the struggle between reading and staying at one page for 10 to 15 minutes and not understanding what you are reading. But in any way, we came to conclusion of the situation that was faced. There has been a program in existing that has to be redesigned. There was a war situation. There are indigenous people. So all these we put into one pot to see how do we redesign the program. So our idea is that the program has to be redesigned, and we need to use the existing data on poverty and disparities between the urban and the rural and the region is pretty high. Indigenous population, to make the case to be able to redesign the program because we have the data at hand. We were cognizant of the political situation, so it's a matter of have to convince the cabinet itself and the population. So we had to make the case for everyone to be convinced. We have to garner support because without this support, it will also be a problem when you have to redesign from those that has been benefiting, including those that has been left to the periphery. So the question of garnering support, it's very crucial at this round table. We had to benchmark to make the case because there could have been the same situation or similar situation or some way, somehow that could assist this roundtable to see how they can redesign the program. Capacity strengthening of the local municipalities. We use municipalities because of our KCA, but it can be local, whatever leadership. In some cases, it could be wards or community or chief. It has to be local down to the ground for preparation of implementing once the redesign program is approved. What approach? The strategy president, this has to be linked to the legacy of the president, because you are facing a political situation where if you have redesigned, you must have left those that have supported you. But at least as a president, if this linked to your legacy, you would be forced to be able to justify the social justice objective, because even if he has to lose votes in the next election, at least your name will be linked to social justice, something good that you have done, should this cause a backlash of losing votes. So the legacy would be a good advice to give to the president for him to be convinced to say, even if I have to lose next time elections, my name would be linked to something good that I have done for the community that has been left out. Demonstrate how the MPI can be powerful government tools, because it is the straight already for social justice. Winning the votes, whereas it can be either it can cause you to win or to lose election. But once you are convinced with regard to your legacy, I think that would be a good advice to give to the president. Demonstrate how MPA is resource allocation tools to achieve equity, accountability, if we can use that tool, that will be helpful to the president already and could be eradicating poverty. What are the arguments to explain to the position? Misalignment of targeting the poorest of the region, poorest region, not targeting the right attention. With this, we are now targeting those that has been left, either being affected by the rebel situation or them being the indigenous communities, as it was put in the case. In the current methodology used in the targeting, hence the need to use more robust methodology like the MPA, because it's now target and it is deliberate that we have to go this direction. Redirecting the FA can also serve as a government tool and peace building. You know, there has been a rebel situation in that particular region. If we can use this as a matter of also building the peace between the communities. The MPI is a human capital development tool. By using the key human development indicator like health, education, and living conditions for social protection targeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Group 3. I think spending an hour to read a page is perfectly acceptable for adult education, right? Thank you so much. I think we have all the other two presentations now.
Yes.
So just one?
Yes. Gloria Steve.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's launch your presentations, then it will be easier to flow. She doesn't want me to present before. She doesn't. Pressure. No, let's put it on a stick. It's easier. Yeah. Which is the other group? This one? It's three. So, this one? Did I give you this? Yes. No.
I'll take you.
How do I give it to you?
Yeah. I think, yeah.
Same,
What is going on here?
Why are you putting your hand on
That's not how you speak of that. No. No. My group, are we there? Now we are under pressure. Oh, that one, yes. Oh, I have to check it there.
No, no, you'll see here.
What is this person called?
Morning. Mark.
We're not ready. Good morning, everyone. Okay, I'm going to present on behalf of our group. I believe we are group 4 in terms of in terms of taking up the stage. What we basically did, okay, let me just see. What we did the mapping of the key issues based on the case study. Oh, I need to be on the mic. Oh, Monica, you can't hear me.
Yes, I
Okay.
can hear you.
You can? Okay, good. Yes, what we got from the case study is the key issues is the issue of geographic and demographic disparities, where the central regions are receiving more aid or more assistance compared to the other regions, where poverty is mostly concentrated. That's where poverty is, but there is no the program wasn't reached. One of the other issues is the issue of outdated targeting methodology as well. We have learned from the case study that they were using, for example, the National Census Survey, which was conducted 12 to 13 years ago. Also, that impacted the selections of beneficiaries for the program. The other issue is also that the tools that were being used were very weak in terms of targeting poor household. That is because they also used that that whole definition, that welfare index survey that did not contain vulnerability variables. So all those factors also contributed to the poor targeting of the program. And also one of the other issues is the political pressure. We have also learned that the administration was receiving criticism to say that they are starting to negotiating with the label. And when you look at that area where the poor were residing, it's also people from this specific area. So those were our key issues that we have mapped out. So what is it that then McMaster need to do? So in our view, what he could possibly do is to do what we call building up a case. That was very important that he understand. Building up a case, in our view, it consists of really just building up an evidence approach to really indicate the current inefficiency and disparity in the current programs. And by doing that, he should also try to highlight as to what are the success of multidimensional index in identifying the vulnerable population. And he should also outline the plan. So it's not one thing to build up to say, yes, the program is inefficient, but he should be prepared. He should be a step ahead to prepare a proposal to say that if we have to redesign, what is the approach? So what we have pulled out here is really to say that in his approach, now that he has built up a case, now that he's indicating that this is the inefficiency that we are currently sitting with, so he should propose a scenario of redesigning. In that, we believe that he should not just go with one way of doing things. he should actually give a proposal to say if they have to increase to cover the one that are not reached, the far not reached people behind, or what should it look like, or if they have to do retargeting, which in most cases would have its pros and cons, and he should actually outline those ones. What would it look like? And also just go a step further and outline what the implementation plan will look like for both scenarios, and the expected timeline, the outcome, the budget implications of doing that, the potential funding resource of redesigning, where is it coming from, and the cost effectiveness of both options, so that when the president and the committees are making, they are discussing, they are informed of all angles of the redesigning. So yeah, so this is basically just what I said, and also just not forgetting to indicate that because this is also one of the frames that the president holds dearly, so you should use the language that he used. Also just emphasizing the importance of social justice toward peace, that these people are not rich, of course, this compromise on the social justice that we are advocating for, and the importance of just decentralizing the services. So in doing so, we also thought that they should, in their redesign, they should also take, why is the other group laughing? Claudia. So in redesigning, they should also look at other factors that were affecting, that is affecting the population, although it was not part of it was not covered in some of them were not covered in the current programs. Things like youth unemployment, things like the untapped resources, which you could actually consider in terms of lively support programs. Things like health and nutrition, it was also an issue that were not covered, not inclusively covered. So by doing so, we propose that as they are going to redesign, they should also advocate for a cash plus, because then we're just giving cash with conditions of education, attendance, and health and all that. But they should also consider putting a plus on their cash so that they are also able to address those other factors that were affecting the community. And that we thank you, and the other team can build on. Build on.
There's a reason why Mother and Valentine's we went to school together. For those that don't know, we think alike. So in circumstances like this, she knows we'll be thinking alike. That's why she wanted to speak first. But be it as it may, I would try my best not to sound like Martha. Okay. So this is the group with senior citizens in front here. My brother, they took 1 hour to read the case study. We took the whole afternoon. We didn't understand what was supposed to be done, let me confess. But later in the night hours, we connected to see how to interpret this. Forgive us if we really missed the point, but this is how we took the assignment. So this Mark Master guy, right? We figured he's like us. Who are we? We are technical people who are entrusted to implement programs that affect people on the ground, the most vulnerable. Hello. It's off. So the whole time, Martha, you were talking in one now. Yes. So the best way to understand the assignment, it was for us to figure out this guy, right? He is like, especially Melikando sitting there, who is entrusted to implement programs like this one that we are busy talking about, to reach out to the most vulnerable. But those programs are not only influenced by her. They have technical and political ambitions. So that made the assignment much easier when it made Mark Master equal to Helen Likando. That was number one. So what better way can you advise somebody than putting yourself in their shoes? The shoes that you've walked in once before. So I think that's what kind of, diminished it for us.
So step one, to know how I'm going to deal with the issues, I need to understand what am I dealing with. So here we had to identify what are the issues that McMaster is dealing with as far as this reprogramming is concerned, and we prioritized them into 5 groups. We saw that finally the map on the last pages was telling us that resources are going where the need is not. So what do we see there? There are a lot of areas of inclusion and exclusion. So there's a problem with targeting. Martha expanded on that one. But the problem with what that does, it creates social unrest. It creates mistrust in believing in the government of the day, that how come if I'm a neighbor, I'm not doing well, but the neighbor that is doing well is having access to these resources. We also saw that the rural-urban divide was also very present. There was a lot of data around that. We also saw that even though there was enrollment that was confirmed, the graduation outcomes of that would not be confirmed. There was also limited employment opportunities. It was reflected in the, and then lastly, the issues around efficiencies and effectiveness, which we believe that it's maybe the reason why the results could not trickle down to some of these sectors where ideally, even though your target was education, you should be seeing some of these results in the other linked sectors. That was not enough. Madeline is asking me, Gloria, yes, there's rural divide. Yes, there is areas of inclusion, but can we go deeper? Just to understand, what are we talking about when we're saying inefficient targeting? So we try to go inside there to find out what could have caused the inclusions, what could have caused the exclusions. So the issues about displacements came out divide, the issues around the urban bias. We saw how naturally the urban areas were performing much better. We went deeper in the issues that we prioritize. Why did we think that there was lagging education outcomes? According to us, the focus was more on the quantity, like enrollment, and not the quality. So yes, access to education, come to school attendance is a precondition, but the question is, were there investment in terms of teachers' resources, books, learning materials? And so that could be some of the gaps that were in that education outcome that was not reflected by the case study, but we assumed. And there was also probably a focus on basic education and not on skills development, because that then changes the curriculum issues. And no wonder there's no graduation to employment creations and so on. The last one on employment opportunities, we made assumptions that, you went to school, right? But why not being hired? Maybe it was a skills mismatch. So there was no thorough interpretation around what the market is demanding versus what this program was offering. And the most important one is the issue of there was no support beyond 18 years plus. So that transition to help you really move into the next stage of your life, because yes, I have the skills, but maybe I needed startup capital, maybe I needed support to do, looking for jobs, those CVs and. So we had to make assumptions. So McMaster / Helen DeCando went step 2 to say, what do we see on our indicator table that we can use? Remember, he's still just trying to understand situation analysis here. We saw that the dimensions that this program primarily could really confirm, they were around poverty, education, health, and other secondary effects, such as, I could proceed, no?
Yeah.
Mics are not charged, right? Okay, so already that is a problem. No wonder we can't be looking for outcomes that we didn't target, right? The outcomes that we targeted are around poverty, education, health, and issues around child labor and so on. We just went a bit further to just check how did those outcomes behave, and we saw who contracted, what were the limitations, and so on. Now, building on, we now understand. As a group, we are saying that we see a critical misalignment as confirmation number 1. Confirmation number 2, we are seeing that it's not just a misalignment, the dimensions that are being attended to are not multidimensional. Number 3, we confirm that the impact was limited based on the first 2 points above. It is therefore without a doubt that we also agree as McMaster that the assignment is valid to proceed in redesigning this program. Because as technical people, colleagues, you don't just now stand up because an assignment was given to you. You must qualify that this assignment is warranted or not, right? I know the assignment was for us to not look at those things, but I think it's just what we do as technical people. So we had to qualify that this assignment Monica gave us was really needed, and we confirmed. So what is the big how? How does McMaster do this? First of all, he needed to build a case for himself and the team around him. Data analysis, very important. What did he find? What else was not included that he needed to put in his data so he is able, numbers tell a story. He must not use political statements, but use the numbers as they are reflected in the reality. Affect the political vision that the president is having in his members. Most importantly, we are asking ourselves, does he just step on now that he knows the numbers, and go, defend anything else? Usually what our seniors are always asking us is, Gloria, where has this worked before? Where has it happened? So he needed to also go deeper and research on best practices that are probably in other countries that are doing very well, so he can have that documented, and then move into scenario setting. Now that he knows that maybe Cambodia and who has done it better, which scenarios can he build for the Colombian situation that speaks to his context? Build that scenario pre-hand, understanding it at his level, and then start doing a cost-benefit analysis around those scenarios. The what if, the opportunity cost that comes with it, how much money would it cost? Building those scenarios will be very critical, because you don't go with one size fits all. You go there with a bit 3 options and say, if we do A, B, C, D, this is what it looks like, money-wise, people-wise, results-wise, modeling, and so on. What is important here is that he can't move alone to that meeting, right? He was just in his office. No, he needs to move a step further by empowering himself as the expert that he is, then move into the room where others are to build consensus and momentum. You don't show up, colleagues, when you don't know what you're talking about, to others to go seek for their support. It's important you do your homework indoor. And then as you go to them, you don't present it as I'm telling you this. This is what I found out. What do you think? Pitching it from I'm seeking your inputs and so on. This will help him build trust, because on that round table, those people will be sitting there. I'm talking about technical committees that are related. I'm talking about ministerials, offices that are key in this program, to also endorse the approaches and the scenarios that he's going to come up with. I'm talking about the community itself, like getting validation that indeed there was a targeting problem here. Indeed, we are confirming. So those minutes are very important to confirm that this what you're talking about is not theoretical, but it's really what is coming from the ground. So mobilizing the social fabric is key, so that he revisits his case in step 1 to recraft it, to sing a song that is common from the very important people that are concerned, to also speak on his behalf to the government. And then lastly, it's the issues around seeking compromises. He needs to put it in his mind that it may not go as planned. There could be a catch to say, Mr. President, we could pilot in region 1 so we can test what it looks like. So he doesn't just assume that it's going to be a rollout that is just a given, right? So that the seeking compromise mentality is very critical. And then lastly, the issue of highlighting long-term benefits, because that is where they are more interested in the issues of sustainability. Okay, now we went a step further. How do we then reimagine this familiar action? Critical, what do you have with you that can help you make sure that this program speaks to what the country wants to see, but also the realities that are on the ground? Because sometimes politicians, they have a vision that the ground cannot support. What is the ground giving us? The ground is telling us that we have a youthful population here. That's why they're complaining that they don't have jobs. Comparative advantage 1. Secondly, we have untapped resources. We have agriculture, trade. Trade implies that there are markets out there. And then the issue of poor infrastructure, and then poor economic opportunity. So whatever we are going to propose in this program, it needs to speak to what is on the ground. It must answer to the issues that people raise or the issues that nature gave us. So you can't come up with a program of biomass, for example, when you don't have forests, right? So in the redesign, you want to contextualize based on where the strengths are that this country is having. So yes, the issues were too many, but McMaster has to prioritize. Based on the issues that were too many, now that he knows what's on the ground, now that we've had built consensus with other stakeholders, I and my team see that he has 3 top priorities to consider for this first discussion. The first one is to pitch that program redesign must happen. It must happen to consider the multidimensional index and even go beyond the indicators that were in there before. It must harness what is on the ground, the comparative advantage part. That is pitch number 1. Meaning multi-pronged approach is what we are advocating for. Pitch number 2, which is his second priority, he must prioritize equitable access. So, but how do we do that? Remember, equity was compromised because of targeting, right? So let's fix that targeting problem. How our data collection and verification exercise is done? How is registration? Is it cumbersome? Is it paper-based? There were no stories inside there, but we made assumptions. And then the issue of phased implementation. Optimizing efficiencies, even in the modality that we are going to choose. If CBT from a cash perspective, driving trucks was maybe the problem in this case study, is mobile money having an opportunity? If so, how? And then lastly, his third priority that he must compete for is that the rural-urban divide is very important to be dealt with. We must redirect rural investment, advocate for a budget through these committees that he spoke to, up to the president level. But this will not happen by magic unless he puts in effort in rural outreach. So building that thing around community members knowing that this is the program they're entitled. Maybe enrollment was affected as the case study stated because of the outreach that was missing. And I think what we also found missing that he needs to pitch for is the issue of tailored support. The programs that are going to the displaced people cannot be the same to those that are host communities. We believe that if McMaster does these 3 things as the first priority for the first meeting, he will lay a foundation to ensure that there's continued dialogue. Lastly, what does Familiar and Action 2.0 look like? We propose what he takes. Remember, we talk about scenarios, right? The first one is the model. I don't want to go into it. I spoke about it already. I think I want to understand the part of male engagement. The first one was more about the mother. And when you are dealing with contexts where poverty is high, you cannot leave the men behind. Otherwise, we're just perpetuating it. So in this model, we need this component of male engagement. We need to redesign it to speak agri-business, agri-livelihood, because these are agricultural-based economies. And if the youth are going to be empowered to get these jobs that they're talking about in the case study, let's take advantage of what they have, and that's agriculture. The rest you can read. Building better. Building better, it said somewhere there that there's poor infrastructure because of the war zones and so on. If there's no infrastructure, there's no amount of development you bring that will make it look like you are moving. So programs that can then bring an element of building it better, whether it's assets and construction of roads, including the communities to build those into their space. So who are the target population in this redesigned community? We want to be intentional to those that need the support. We heard it's the indigenous, we heard it's those in conflict zones, we heard it's rural, and we heard it's Africans. There's no sugarcoating. The evidence says these are the ones. And therefore, Mr. President, we would like to redesign the package that goes to these guys. The package that was universal can remain to the non-poor that we find, because removing them out completely will not be a wise decision because it can cause what? Social tension. So the reprogramming we are making is for these guys. Selection criteria, you must be poor. You must meet the target population criteria. You must at least have 4 to 5 dimensions that you are deprived in. And you should have at least 0 to 18-year-olds in your household, because that is the group that has demonstrated deficiencies. The modality, Martha, thank you, it's cash plus, we agree. We also advocate that this must be monthly. Remember in the scenario, we're getting it every 2 months. Sometimes that can cause disruptions for continued sustainability. If I don't get next month, then what's happening to me? So we are saying modality needs to be monthly. We want to look at efficient models such as cash mobile systems. Most importantly, my brother there mentioned about strengthening the capacities at local level, because decentralization is what will get you there. The local capacities that are there. The issue around positive change management. In war-zone environment, there's issues around mental what do they call it? Mental health, right? So we shouldn't forget bringing the positive change management into the package so that these people can build better also from that perspective. And then, of course, now we can see that our MPIs that we are going to target, they become comprehensive, as the name suggests. Lastly, as I exit, these people that we spoke about, are we creating conditions like the case study suggested? Our group says yes or no. Yes to the program elements that has to do with participation in skills development and so on. On condition that you attend the workshops for you to have that benefit. If you're going to be giving inputs, you don't get those inputs if you do not come regularly for the extension service sessions and stuff like that. But no, for the basic related support services, because sometimes withdrawing that support, or for example, nutrition, healthcare, and so on, it could be damaging that child, because sometimes that child depends on the mother to bring them to access these resources. So we can't punish the children based on the behavior of the parents. It's not obvious that the parents will comply because this condition is there, right? So no for the basic service related components, yes for the skills development related component. We are advocating in closing that there must be a graduation criteria for this group. That graduation criteria needs to be fully defined. McMaster must tell the roundtable that we need to have indicators that shows that the person is really moving. Do we see agricultural productivity? Do we see how many youth got jobs in this process? How many transition to what? How many of them improve their health indicators and so on? Most importantly, there must be a phase from the day I graduate. We must have a predefined period that tells us that, Gloria, I will be holding your hand for 3 months before I let you go. This transition plan is critical to seeing this result. We submit.
Did you ever have that friend that didn't study throughout the academic year and started the night before an essay exam? Thank you very much for time. I think now we get to the last presentation, right? Are we ready? Group 6, who is making the presentation? Thanks to Gloria. That's why Martha didn't want to come after her. It's okay. Please come up. We don't have a presenter. You do have a comment? No, she won't. Only on the laptop. While they are getting ready. Monica, a comment from group 5. Just
No, to the last group, no.
No, the last group is still getting ready, so group 5 has an extra comment to make.
Okay.
That's what in advising, Mark should also advise the president that despite the controversies, usually poverty breeds conflict. So it's something that cannot be ignored. When people experience development, there will be less conflict. So you cannot really ignore and say, if we attend to this, there are rebels in those areas, how will I be perceived? That perception can be there. But the moment you invest in developing an area, in fact, there's a term that politicians use, that if you neglect people to the extent that they are poverty-stricken, a hungry person has nothing to lose. They can cause war, they can do anything to disrupt peace because they have nothing to lose. So let's pay attention to that, even us as we advise our principals. Thank you.
Group 6, are we ready? Thank you, it should be fine. The youth in your
The
group.
youth in my group has decided that they all don't want to present. Now they are sending the blind one to come and present.
Yeah. From there, and then use just this two.
Okay. Now we also have a benefit of being the last group to present, which means most of the issues have been covered by the, the first 5 groups. So from our side, what we can say is that Mr. Bruce has 3 options. And before he presents any of his options, he's going to thank the president and his foresight for having embraced the CMPI, because the tools that were used before were having their limitations, but until the CMPI was implemented, it enabled them to see a number of issues that they were not able to see in the past. Number one, that despite investing in quite an in the FA scheme, there are now shortcomings that they are seeing. They are seeing that in the rural areas, there's an inability, that in the rural areas, there are serious inequalities, and unless these are addressed, it will continue to cause havoc in the country. The issue of security, which is key to the presidential campaign or the country's direction, the issue of employment and the issue of poverty will not be addressed adequately. So there are 3 options. One is to leave issues the way they are. It is politically untenable. The other issue is to universalize the FA, which is also problematic in that there might be fiscal limitations. And then the other issue is to universalize, have an approach to universalizing it, in that we are going to propose that he graduate or build in mechanisms for graduation, for graduation with labor market activation mechanisms or programs built into it, proposing 2 pathways. One pathway, which is that of entrepreneurship, and the other mechanism of, hey, what's the word I'm trying to look for? Am I panicking? Okay, so yeah, basically what we're going to introduce is that there's going to be built-in mechanism of graduation. Labor market activation is going to be key to this. So one group will be assisted to move into entrepreneurship, while another group is going to be moved into employment, so that while we are graduating people in the existing program, out of the existing program, we are gradually going to capture people who are in the rural areas. So it's going to be parallel, right? And then the value proposition. The recommendations, yeah. I can't really see any of this. Linda, come and help me. I really cannot see any of this. Okay, so like I said, these are the 3 recommendations that is going to make. So we are going to enhance the existing program by building in human capacity improvement mechanisms. Like this I said before, we are going to graduate people gradually out of this program. We are building their human capacity so that they venture either into entrepreneurship or they are assisted into employment. And while we are doing that, this program is going to be
extended, coverage is going to be extended to people in the rural areas. This one started with targeting cities that are having less than 100,000 people. It didn't start as a big program. And we are also going to pilot it the same way in the rural areas by targeting people, smaller cities at a time, smaller settings at a time, so that we counter the argument that we know we'll face from the Minister of Finance of limited fiscal policy, fiscal space, okay? And then the second one is that as we are graduating people out of this, we are also gradually inserting or injecting newer people into the program. That's number one. And then the other issue is that of what we noticed through the MPI, that people in the rural areas, the school completion rate at primary school is reducing, while that in urban area is increasing. So that would suggest that because most of the people who are in the peripheral regions, they were displaced by the war. So there could be a need for psychosocial support in this region. So part of the part of extending coverage to these regions, we are also going to introduce psychosocial support to the children in these regions, so that they are assisted with increasing the school completion rates past primary school. In the end, what we think this is going to help us with is that the president will be seen in the country as not only a president of the people in the region in which he garnered, he got his votes, but is going to be seen as a president of the people's president who addresses issues of poverty, unemployment, and security across the entire country. That's endearing the president to all. The other issue that we also saw is that while the other issue that we also saw in the article is that in the peripheral regions, although people are moving into employment, most of the employment here is informal. People are employed informally. So the reformed FA program is going to assist these people with decent employment. So we're really going to make sure that people are going to be employed formally, or social protection mechanisms are going to be extended to these people so that they are transitioned into formal employment or decent employment as opposed to informal employment. Linda, there was another issue that you also noticed in the periphery regions. What was it? It was a key challenge to be included in this. Okay, all right. So these are the three recommendations that we are going to make to the team of president. First of all, it's just to thank them for the leadership, for introducing this key mechanism or this key tool that help us to see things that previously we were unable to see in the previous ones. The issue of inequality that is growing, especially in that the fact that these people are not, they were there because they were forced into these peripheral regions because of the war, and that they should not continue to be disenfranchised of this opportunity to benefit from the program. So extending will be done gradually, so that in the end they are also part and parcel of the greater vision of the president to be covered through poverty mechanisms, for unemployment to be reduced, and for security to be enhanced. And like Gloria was saying, this is the area that is rich in agriculture. So the youth in this area will be assisted to benefit from agriculture, to come up with employment opportunity, assisted with employment opportunities in the agricultural sector. And that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I think this brings us to the end of all the 6 presentations. Monica, from the sound of it, I think Namibia is ready to use the MPI as a policy tool.
So
Yes.
it's over to you, yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And it was really, really amazing to see this. I can't believe that you were not able to understand the document, because the recommendations that you have gave are really good. So thank you very much. Really comprehensive presentations, and some of you went beyond to reform the whole system. So this is amazing. Thank you for that. So one of the things that happened, and I'm telling you a little bit of the story, is that once McMaster has this dilemma, they use the MPI to improve the targeting. So unfortunately, there were no resources in order that they can maintain the same targeting in urban areas or in the central. So they needed to redistribute. But the idea in here was like the campaign, it was more like, okay, we really want to reach to those who are left behind and reach those who are in the poorest areas. So we are going to redistribute a little bit better. And in the future, we're going to reallocate resources. And another thing was that in the areas where there were more subsidies or more benefits, a lot of people were not using those subsidies. So there was like in the central areas, so a lot of people were not claiming the subsidies or were not registering to get the subsidies. So once they start like doing this analysis of who is receiving and who is not receiving and how we can reallocate resources, it was easier. But as most of you comment, it is a need to improve targeting, it is a need to redistribute, and it's a need to have like social justice in mind. And as well, it is important to really think about how you can improve the levels of multidimensional poverty or improve the levels of development of the individuals and the households who are receiving the benefit. So part of the process, if you saw in the document, is that it was the MPI, it was a new tool, it was a tool that was like competing, let's say like that, with other tools, but it was like the tool that was providing a better view of what was poverty in that moment. And also it was a tool that provided like a more comprehensive analysis of how those different dimensions relate. So in the case of Colombia, this was one of the aspects that started like mobilizing or moving towards including the MPI in different programs and towards like trying to like promote the use of multidimensional poverty. And the idea of this case, I know that maybe at the beginning it was a little bit challenging to understand, but it's also to understand how you can really incorporate multidimensional poverty measures, and that you also start thinking about how in the case of Namibia you can use this in the case from your own perspectives, from your own jobs, from your own activities, how you can bring the MPI and the information that the MPI is providing, and based on that, how you can really try to reaccommodate things and try to make that the actions that you are doing in social protection really impact poverty and people who are extremely vulnerable, and how you can measure and monitor that. So I hope and like the presentations show us that it was really successful exercise. It was, and I'm really surprised that the group number 5 only managed to do this last night, because I think like you have like a long night because it was a really comprehensive assessment of the situation. So thank you to all the groups, and I feel like you have understand like and embrace the fact that multidimensional poverty can be a tool for social protection, and you can use it from your own context. So little by little, and doing these type of exercises, I feel like you will have more tools in order to understand this. And the hope is that you can, I will put in contact with the person who managed or who has computed the global, the national MPI in Namibia. So I will put in some of you in contact with her in order that you can really approach her and get to know how the MPI is computed in Namibia and how you can interact in order to use the information. And especially because there is a new survey, and the MPI, hopefully it will be launched and release the new data soon. So over to you, the team in the group. I don't know if there is any question or anything from the participants.
Any questions, colleagues?
Or any comment regarding the exercise?
Any questions? Any comments? They are all looking down. I don't think they want me to
they're tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
No, there is no questions at all. So does that take us to the next session then, Monica?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Okay, great. My colleague Lana is going to take over from me now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello. Great, thank you all for that very rich and comprehensive discussion. I thought there were a lot of really excellent points, not just addressing different dimensions of multidimensional poverty, but really bringing them together, discussing the interactions, how they affect one another, a lot of rich discussion of different types of social deprivation. And it's helpful, it also gives a lot of context and meaning to how this actually plays out in the real world, how these different dimensions play together. So thank you for that. With that, we'll be having a discussion now with some of my UN colleagues. We'll hear some presentations from different UN agencies in country, hearing more about the local context, what's happening here, and in particular, they'll present some of their approaches related to toolkits to monitor and evaluate social protection interventions and discuss how to complement initiatives and key challenges to move forward. So we hope this discussion will really help inform and help you all make connections and synergies with your work and different activities in the UN that you might already be interacting with or maybe would like to more so. With that, I will introduce first my colleague, Mr. Jacob Nyamanzao from UNICEF. Okay, please. You have a PowerPoint? Okay. I'm gonna just grab a flash drive and put it on this.
I can't just. Need a flash. I can just.
Yeah, so put in a flash drive in this one so we can.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, colleagues. try to put some order in. Yeah. So as the UN, we have kind of combined our presentation, just also to reflect the way we work in Namibia as a one UN, obviously supporting the government. So most of the programs that Nashandi presented, programs that we are also supporting in one way or the other, in terms of technical assistance. And of course, we have some programs where we have as UN supported. And we also work under the banner of the United Nations partnership framework, where social protection is under the social services sub-pillars, one of the sub-pillars under the social services. And we have our outcome area that reads as by 2023, most vulnerable children, persons living with disability, marginalized communities, and poor utilize quality integrated social protection services. So all our interventions as one UN report to this pillar that is also co-chaired by the UN and the government. So just to quickly highlight, just also for the benefit of our colleagues, non-resident, in terms of how we've been working. So you have your UNPAF social protection sub-pillar at the center, and most of the work has really been more upstream kind of in terms of policy support. I think Gloria mentioned the work we did around supporting the government and development, the first social protection policy that was launched in 2021. We've also been supporting the government at the capacity strengthening level, national and regional level. Because this is one of those trainings, but also we've done quite a bit in terms of the whole value chain of social protection, issues around MIS, registries, and in just the entire spectrum. We've also supported a couple of interregional learning exchange programs. Data and evidence generation also is a very key component that as UN we've also been supporting around evaluations, researches, costing, also elements around budget analysis. Then at program implementation level, we have supported those programs around cash-based transfer led by our colleagues in WFP. School feeding program is also one of those programs that we are directly also implementing, led by WFP, and also elements around drought response. Then the final piece is around system strengthening, where we've also been supporting government in terms of building management information systems for social protection, SARS, SCOPE, IBR, CB, MIS are some of the tools, and that work is ongoing. I will elaborate on that also further. After having all these discussions, for the past 2 days, and also as part of our programming, the UN, we are working on the next United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework that will be running from 2025 to 2029. And in that program, also jointly with government, we have kind of defined our priorities in terms of what will be the priorities for social protection going forward. And I think some of this also links nicely or perfectly in terms of what we've been discussing over the past 2 days. And one of the things that we think needs to done is around integration of programs. I think Monica kept talking about cash plus linkages. We think that's probably one of the gaps in our social protection. I think there's a whole body of evidence that shows that cash alone will not achieve the greatest impact. But if that cash is complemented or linked to sort of complementary services that are key for human capital development and poverty reduction, will probably be able to optimize on that cash. And I think that message that kept coming from Monica. So I think that's probably one of the areas that we need to invest in terms of how do we ensure that we provide cash but linked to other key sort of elements. And now that speaks to the Namibia multidimensional poverty. Already the NAPI shows that nutrition is probably one of the biggest drivers of multidimensional poverty. So how do we, in the process of providing cash, link beneficiaries to nutrition, be it social behavior change, be it nutrition feeding practices, or how do we also link it to behavior change? How do we also link it to sexual reproductive health and elements around GPV, which is also a big issue. Tata David will come after me, will also speak to elements around HIV sensitive social protection. So how do we also ensure that people living with HIV are also included in the design of the social protection? So we think that there are a lot of elements that we could weave into the current cash programs, even including mentorship, skills development, promotion of health services and human rights. I think from here is all about how do we develop that kind of framework and SOPs. I think there was also a discussion around some of the programs lacking SOPs. And maybe pilot those elements. The second thing that we feel needs to happen is probably a review of programs. And I'm also looking at Amson here, whether this could be something of interest, because we were saying, I think in that booklet, we could see that there are over 30 programs. So we're just discussing and saying, is there scope to consolidate some of those? Consolidate, but not to shrink benefits or shrink in terms of coverage. It's just to look at the programs and say, are there programs that can be combined? But we don't want to shrink the benefits or shrink the coverage. It's just a matter of addressing or improving efficiencies and addressing administrative burden when we have those programs that could easily be combined. So it could be probably just a question of just a review of those programs, see which programs can be clubbed together, and also how can we also improve in terms of addressing some of the existing gaps in terms of coverage along the life cycle sort of approach, which is the commitment that the social protection policy has made. The third element is obviously around system strengthening in terms of development and the rollout of digital integrated management information systems to improve technical and administrative efficiencies, including data for marginalized communities. I think this is also another issue. There's talk about developing biometrics to preclude the requirements of an ID, which marginalized and nomadic communities normally lose when they itinerate. So it's a question of, if we have biometrics, is that a way that can easily ensure that they continuously access their benefits? We've also seen in some countries, I think Turkey is one of the most commonly cited experience when they developed and rolled out integrated management information systems that they were able to achieve efficient savings of almost 10% of their expenditure in terms of social protection. So that then allows you to also expand coverage without the need of additional fiscal space from Ministry of Finance. I think through this, we can easily also eliminate some of the issues that colleagues were saying around unintended duplications. I think there are some which are intended where beneficiary can get one or two grants, but there are some instances where we also the intention is not for someone to get two benefits. So you can also easily eliminate that, but also you can also reduce administrative burden on the part of the administrators of social protection, but also on the beneficiary side. I'm not sure if there's still that requirement for old age pension to present themselves after every 3 months as proof of life. But when the system is linked and speaking to the National Population Register, if someone passes on, can easily, without necessarily requiring the beneficiaries to present themselves. So the other element is really around employment, social protection, obviously leveraging on the global accelerator. I think Amson mentioned this first day, to develop policy guidelines for the promotion of decent work and social security. I think our colleagues in ILO will be leading us on this. I think there's a lot of talk around graduation. How do we ensure that beneficiaries don't perpetually rely on social protection, but also ensure that there are clear graduation sort of mechanism. But also linking them to employment is probably one of those key elements that could help. In terms of the other key sort of elements that are also maybe of priority going forward, it's around strengthening evidence generation and monitoring and evaluation. I think Gloria emphasized this when she spoke, was it on day one? Yesterday, sorry. Then obviously there's also issues around strengthening productiveness and shock responsiveness of social protection. I think this is some of the issues that are emerging in terms of how do we ensure that social protection is also productive in a sense. I think Ethiopia is one of those countries that I've cited in terms of their productive social safety net that is linked to production and the biomass sort of sector. So beneficiaries also have been involved in debushing and linking to biomass, which is in a way productive, and also being shock responsive. I think there was a talk about whether one did disaster relief, drought relief, or a disaster sort of relief. So it's about how do we make the system more shock responsive in terms of the different shocks that might happen with time. I will not emphasize the leave no one behind principle, which is also a commitment in terms of the social protection policy and the Constitution of Namibia, section 95, that speaks to universality in terms of ensuring that everyone is covered. The last element is around social mobilization and advocacy. I think Gloria also spoke well about this. But I also want to highlight issues around how do we make sure that beneficiaries are fully aware, and we commend government in terms of developing the booklet, which we see as an important first step in ensuring that this information is widely shared. And we understand there are plans to then develop it into local languages for and wider distribution. But we also think that there's also scope for us to share more in terms of the positive stories about the impacts of social protection. Or just sitting there with Ms. Kufuna, and she was sharing about how some of the beneficiaries of the disability grant have now graduated into lawyers and all those things. It's unfortunate that those stories are not commonly told. The stories that we hear is about how people are abusing the benefits, alcohol, and all those issues. So we think that, I mean, sharing some of those positive in terms of how social protection is actually impacted, people can also change people's perspectives, including also the beneficiaries themselves, actually realize that this is the support that they should also optimize on. So those are just quick sort of overview in terms of what we see as the direction of social protection going forward, what we see as our role here in Namibia in terms of supporting the government in social protection. But I will probably ask David to come and speak to HIV sensitive social. Thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jacob, for that great presentation, which really lays down the foundation of my presentation. So what I'm going to share with you is really some of the work that I learned in my previous portfolio. Before coming to Namibia, I was in Geneva for 10 years working on social protection, disability, and closed settings. So those were the three portfolios that I led. And just to say that for UNAIDS, we are a co-sponsor organization. So we are made up of 11 UN agencies. As UNAIDS, we are the secretariat, and we try and leverage the expertise of these 11 co-sponsors to make sure that their work also includes HIV. So in the new strategy, we have 10 results areas, and we are kind of clustered around those results areas. There's one result areas on social protection and integration. That is the work that is led in what we call the UN Division of Labor by WFP and the ILO. So this changes. Sometimes it's the UNICEF and the World Bank, but for this period, it is the ILO and WFP. There are other aspects of the HIV response, such as prevention, for example, HIV prevention, led by our colleagues from WFP and WHO. Prevention of mother-to-child transmission, again, we have other agencies that lead the work. So we have a new strategy to lead us up to 2016. So the idea of this new strategy is really to address HIV from a lens of ending inequalities, essentially about extending the concept of leaving no one behind. So there are several targets. And within this target, we have one that looks at social protection. And it says that by next year, we should have at least ensured that 45% of people that are living with HIV, those that are affected by HIV, and those that are at risk by HIV, access one or more social protection benefits. So this is the target in which the work on social protection was anchored. But before I continue on social protection, just a few slides on disability. Again, because this is an area that I led, and this is also something that is really very close to HIV, and it's also linked to social protection. So that's the definition for disability. I'm sure you've read it and seen it several times. So in the context of HIV, disability is really, really important for two main reasons. One reason is that disability can be a cause and a consequence of living with HIV. So that's one reason. People that are disabled may have difficulties in accessing HIV services. They may experience intimate partner violence that can make them acquire HIV. And those that have HIV, even with the new treatment, you can develop, there are some people may develop disabilities. So I think that's one link why for us as UNAIDS, disability is important. The second link is that among all the population groups that we call the key populations, among all the people that are most affected by HIV, you find that persons with disability are also included. Yes, I think again, going back to the issue about ending inequalities, persons with disabilities are likely to die 20 years earlier than those without a disability. They have high risk to contracting conditions such as diabetes, stroke, and so on. And they face difficulties in accessing social services, including health facilities. So some of the evidence generally shows that persons with disability are much more affected by HIV than persons with disability. So I think that is kind of something that's known generally, but recent work, again here a bit of a shameless promotion. Some of the work, including the work that I have led, show that it's not always the case that persons with disability that they are left behind. In the work we did in Tanzania, we found that HIV prevalence, when we control for different factors, was not different between persons with disability and those that don't have a disability. Again, showing that disability, yes, is a big issue, but there are other things that make people who have a disability much more at risk of getting HIV. You know, the poverty, the education, the intimate partner violence, and so on. Then when we looked further, we found that in general, persons with disability may know their HIV positive status than those that don't have a disability. So I think the big issue now for disability is that the information is a little bit more nuanced than the blanket statement that persons with disability are left behind, because that's not always the case. And another thing, again, I don't know those who have been following the AIDS response in Namibia, because Namibia won the award for the elimination of a mother-to-child transmission of HIV and hepatitis. Are you aware about that? Huh? Yes, I think we won up to silver for HIV and bronze for hepatitis B. But some of the work that we have done again shows that maybe that doesn't apply to all groups of women. For example, women with disability in hearing, we found out that they are among the last to access prevention of mother-to-child transmission of HIV services. You know, if you are disabled, if, for example, you are disabled and you are not able to walk, the health facilities, they will know that this person can't walk and they will be able to support you. But if you can't hear, I think it's really difficult. You go to the health facility, everyone is busy. They'll just think, what's wrong with this person? So you find that you can't hear the information, and you can't, because you can't hear, you can't communicate. So you find you know, the inequalities, the access to HIV services among persons with disabilities is not the same. Some are much more impacted than others, especially those with hearing problems. Okay, so as Lana introduced, the main work we did on social protection was around measuring to see, first of all, if we are meeting that target that we mentioned. So that was one piece of work. The other piece was like what we did yesterday. Remember yesterday what Monica did is what you're presenting today. You were looking at all the different programs. So part of what we did in this HIV and social protection assessment tool was to look at the different programs that exist in the country and then see for each program that persons with disability, that persons with HIV, those at risk of, and those that are affected with HIV, for each program that they are eligible, are they accessing the program? If not, what were the problems? So that's what we did essentially in the HIV and social protection assessment tool. It had 3 main steps. The first step was to establish to secure high-level political commitment, make sure that we have the right people on the table to do the analysis, like here, including people living with HIV. Then the second part was the HIV and social protection assessment. Like what we did, that would be like part of what we would do. The only addition would be the HIV part. We would add everything that we have discussed, then we include the HIV part. And I'll show you a little bit of the HIV part here. So first on the target there, on the target, Namibia is here. Namibia is here, and we have people living with HIV, male. We have adolescent girls and young women, orphans and vulnerable children, men who have sex with men, sex workers, female sex workers, male sex workers, and you can see that Namibia really big, good achievement here, especially among orphans and vulnerable children. Really good coverage. But still, when we do the lines, still none of these countries reached the 45% target. But again, really impressive achievement from Namibia. It was really encouraging to hear Wilbur present the information. The other part, Jacob mentioned about the intimate partner violence. Again, social protection has been proven to really reduce the perpetration of intimate partner violence by reducing the conflicts in the household, increasing the budget for the household, empowering the women so that they're able to negotiate. And intimate partner violence is also connected to HIV. So for HIV, it is also important for us to really push and make sure that intimate partner violence is addressed. Then we have the big problem. We have a really big problem regarding adolescent girls and young women. They are among the most that are affected, especially in this region. Namibia, because we're a small country, still we have around 6,000 adolescent girls and young women that get infected with HIV. So because we are a small country, but still it's a big problem in the region. And social protection, actually some of the work that our colleagues in UNICEF, Innocenti, and others have done, does show that social protection has a lot of impact on many of the things that make the young people vulnerable. For example, in Kenya, the OVC cash transfer led to a 31% reduction in the odds of sexual debut among adolescents. In Tanzania, again, big reduction in STDs for the group that received the cash transfer. In Malawi, the Zomba cash transfer was one of the few that measured HIV prevalence, again found a big reduction in HIV because of the cash transfers. Same in South Africa. But the goodness for most of these programs, the goodness is that they were not targeted at HIV. They were targeted at something else. But then when you measure the HIV part, you find there's a reduction. So further work then looked at, can we actually focus these cash transfers on HIV, preventing HIV incidents. So there were some work our colleagues in the World Bank did in Tanzania and Lesotho, especially on the lottery. Again, they were able to show that they were able to show that if you incentivize to say, if you show up next week with an HIV test, you can enter this lottery and have a chance to win some money. That did encourage the young people in Lesotho and even in Swaziland to really make sure that they did not get HIV. So in Bosa Familia, again, one of the best programs on social protection in the world, again, not focused on HIV, but found a big reduction in several outcomes that are related to HIV. So in short, social protection is also really big, important for us to reach those goals. Looking at this work on adherence among adolescents, to take an HIV pill every day is not easy, especially for young people. It's really not easy. But the work that our colleagues did in South Africa showed that for adolescents, if you give them, if they have no intervention, the chance for adolescents, the chance that they will adhere to their treatment is less than half. But if you give them a support group, the chance increases. If you give them food security, the chance increases. If you support them again, but when you combine, I think this is the whole concept about Cash Plus. When you combine all those, the food, the parental support, the support group, the chance that the adolescents are going to adhere to their HIV treatment really increases dramatically. So I think that is the same issue even on social protection. We're discussing with Mr. Wilbur here, and he says, well, the problem is double dipping. I think for me, it's okay. I think if they can get several services, we are likely to get more impact, across many of the things. These are just the HIV part that I'm mentioning. Schooling, again, a big issue because some of the programs, we support the young people to go to school. And for HIV, we find that when an adolescent girl goes in school and stays in school, the chances of her getting HIV is really very low. It's reduced by 7%, for example, and maybe even closer to 9%. So even education is also an HIV intervention, regardless of whether even education, just secondary, primary, secondary, is also a big HIV prevention intervention. Okay, so that's some of the, we usually would go into much more details on the HIV links and social protection. But as I mentioned, really the purpose is just to look at the different programs that exist in the country. Are all those different population groups, are they able to access for those programs that they are eligible for? Yeah. Then the last part is really the analysis, exactly like we are doing here, the group work and so on. And then we use that report for advocacy purposes. We did about 20 of these assessments, and most of these reports are available. Those are some of the countries where we did these assessments, including in Namibia. So the key things that we learned first is that timing was really important when conducting these assessments. For example, just when COVID started, the government in Zambia decided to do the emergency registration. So our colleagues in Zambia, they took advantage of that and they did the assessments to make sure that and they did the assessments, and because the government was like, we need more people. But then what used to happen is that the sex workers, they did not feel comfortable, to have their vulnerability assessments conducted by the government people. So what in Zambia the group did is that they asked the group for sex workers to organize who they felt were vulnerable, and then they invited the government to that meeting. The government did a vulnerability assessment, and out of that, they found people that were vulnerable, and they linked them to social protection. I think the good thing, really, with making the right timing is that once those people get into that program, then they are there pretty much for the rest of their life. I think there is issues around graduation, but my sense is that you face so many constraints that it's not that easy to jump out of poverty unless something you are pushed. Maybe you do very well at school and you're offered a scholarship, and then you can hopefully get out of poverty. So I think just the right timing, making sure also the different groups were included, and to include some of the population groups. It's easy for us because all of us here we work, isn't it? All of us here we work, right? Yeah, so I think attending a meeting like this is not costly for us, but it's not the same for our civil society colleagues. So part of this work was maybe we give them some transport to come to that meeting. We kind of find a way to compensate to make sure that they are there. So that is, in a nutshell, the work I led on social protection, and some of this work is still going. I was asked to lead this work here in Africa, but also being as a UNES country director, it's very busy, so I don't have much time to do this work, but this is something that's really passionate about, and I still continue to work on it. And one of our latest work, we are looking at inequalities in accessing social protection. I think we know that social protection is generally pro-poor. It's targeted at the poor people, isn't it? It's pro-poor. So I think one of the work that we have done recently confirms that yes, most of the programs, they are pro-poor. The curve, when the curve is above the 45 angle, I think this is just the concentration curve, then it shows that the savings or the area of interest is pro-poor. If it's below, it's pro-rich. So in about 13 countries, we find that the social protection, access to social protection, is generally pro-poor. It's only in Cote d'Ivoire and it's only in Cameroon where it's mainly the rich people accessing, and Cote d'Ivoire, it's not we couldn't define it. But for Namibia here, we found it was really nice and pro-poor, really good coverage and pro-poor. So most of the population groups, that's the adult population, women living with HIV, men living with HIV, adolescent girls, they are receiving the program just like everyone else. So they are not being excluded. They are receiving like everyone else, and it's mainly the poor people, and that's how it should be. But then when we looked a little bit further, we found that in eight of these countries, unfortunately, the bottom quintile of the poorest people, we found that only 15% were accessing the benefits. Most of the benefits were in the middle and the higher income group. But for Namibia, and I was really very happy to see your presentation, to have your presentation confirmed. For Namibia, what we found out is that the majority who are receiving the social protection programs, 50% are in the bottom wealth quintile, among the bottom poor. But we have the rich there at the top. The 20% of them are still receiving, but now I can understand that that may include the veterans and others. But it was really good to at least have that confirmation from Mr. Wilbur. Okay, yes, so this was just for Namibia. So I think the key thing again is political will. Political will is really key, making sure that there's increased attention and commitment for the program to improve, and scaling up access to primary and secondary school education and empowerment programs so that the young people, especially the women that come out of secondary school, there's a pathway to employment. Gender equality, really important issue. And I think the last one is for us to cultivate strong partnerships for action. I think for the HIV community, what we are increasingly seeing is that most of the services, we are accessing them, but what most people living with HIV here in Namibia are saying the big issue for them is not the ARVs. Who can guess what the big issues for them? Food, hunger is the big issue. So I think also we need to work with that community. Even our colleagues, the LGBTQ colleagues, I visited them in Walvis Bay. The main issue, of course, there are some interruption in access to condoms and lubricants and so on, but the main issue also is food, that some of our members are poor. So we have to make that bridge. And this is what I'm encouraging our HIV colleagues. In fact, in the assessment, there is one section we look at, we do look at the coordination mechanism to make sure that people that work on HIV are included there. And that they will, but if it's possible, please try and see how you can include communities that work on HIV, because it's those communities that are going to help you reach the communities that you can't reach. For example, the map you showed about Kavango West and Zambezi being, experiencing multi-dimensional poverty, that would be about like the same map for HIV. So these things are going hand in together. Among the most affected areas is Zambezi, Kavango, the 4 O's up there. And that's where, again, we see the poverty. So I think the key thing here is that we have to work together. And I think for us, the HIV people, maybe we're not good at reaching out the IO, but now is the time, because also the money for us has finished. Where the money is in social protection. So we have to work together, because once we push, once the programs scale up, then the different population groups can also be reached by the intervention. So just really, again, thank you so much for all the support. And just to say that this tool that I mentioned and all the different documents, you can get them at the UNAIDS website. And this tool, we developed it together with our UNICEF, WFP, UNDP, ILO, and WHO colleagues. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much, Jacob and David, for those excellent presentations. We'll have what's going on? Questions? Oh, perfect. Yeah, we're about to open up for questions. Just to tie things together, I just wanted to highlight how I think these two discussions really bring together a lot of what we've been talking about in terms of synergies and also intersections, meaning both in intersections in terms of different types of deprivations, how people with disabilities and HIV are doubly disadvantaged, how women with HIV have additional disadvantages to look at. And also on the flip side, how different types of beneficial programs can really lift all different types of deprivations. How, as we heard, that girls going to school really reduces HIV. And likewise, how we heard from Jacob of UNICEF, how there are initiatives to bring these different UN programs together to really have collaboration and synergy, added efficiencies, and to really maintain and expand the level of scope and the coverage of these programs. And likewise, how cash transfers that really target particular elements of behavior change, of social needs can be beneficial. So thank you both. And with that, I open it up to questions. Please feel free to just come to the front of the room and ask your question. Maybe we can have like 3 or 4 questions and then invite Jacob and David back to respond, please. Yeah, I'll invite you to come up so you can speak into the mic.
I'm sorry, but I missed the part of doing good with those men having sex with men. What does that mean? There was a slide where we are doing good. Is it in terms of protecting them for social protection, or I just missed that? I'm trying to understand what is it that we are doing good.
We are doing good, and in which way are they? No, okay. I maybe for those who may not be aware today, the Supreme Court has ruled that it's unconstitutional. That the sodomy law is unconstitutional here in Namibia. So it's a very big achievement for all of us in support of the LGBTQI. So in UNAIDS, we have populations that we call key populations. So this includes men who have sex with men. The gay men and men who have sex with men, because we have gay men and we have men who are not gay, but then they have sex with men. We find these are hardest hit by HIV. We find they are hardest hit by HIV. Sex workers, they are also hardest hit by HIV. People who inject drugs, when you share drugs, then you get it's high. And in East and Southern Africa, we also include adolescent girls and young women, then also prisoners and migrants. These are the same ones, especially the migrants, again, the same ones that are missed by different services, including social protection. So I think when I said we are doing well, what I meant is in terms of providing the services, we are doing well. But I think in terms of, I forgot also about transgender people as well. But in terms of accessing the social protection services, it's not easy. At least Namibia is a little bit more supportive than other countries. In other countries, they just say, well, this is a social behavior, so those communities will not come to the government. They don't get anything else. I was discussing with Dr. Wilbur here. In in one of the countries I visited, we had, for example, LGBT, one LGBT man. He said he is poor because he says he's a woman, but when he was going at school, when he goes to the toilet for the boys harass him. They say, well, you belong to the girls. And when he goes to the girls say, no, what are you doing here? You belong to the boys. He said he was bullied and harassed, and he stopped going to school. So really poor. And in that country, those communities are criminalized. So he said, I can't accept the benefits that I'm entitled to. But when we sat him and with others and the government, and said, well, no problem, as long as it doesn't matter your social identity, as long as you meet the vulnerability, sorry, you should be able to access. So I think that's what I meant in terms of us not doing well, that sometimes these services are not open to people that need the services. And it's not all of them. Just a few of them. In one of the countries, they said, what is the number? We gave them the number. The government said, yeah, no problem. They can be part of the program. It's not all of them. Yeah. Isn't it no problem.
I will not say no problem, but I would rather say our social protection system is so comprehensive that it's not discriminatory in terms of gender. So if you are poor, irrespective of your status and gender or otherwise. As you indicated, the High Court has pronounced it. If the High Court has pronounced itself, then that presents us with the pronouncement of that it's not illegal. It's not illegal for sodomy in Namibia. So that's what is in. So I think we will have to get there, or we'll cross the bridge once we get there. If we need to make specific adjustments targeting that specific group and others. Any other questions, no? Oh, there is a, yeah, please. You still need to come in front for Monica.
Thank you very much. My question or my concern is regarding how it comes from the first presentation on UN. We have it concerns about the data and evidence generation. We have kind of lack of data in the country, and at many times we are told that we cannot we don't really have a reliable data on anything. For a specific example, it's the issue of child labor in Namibia. So there are times whereby we really don't have data. I really want to find out from the UN on how they are working together with the national probably statistic agents in the country in order to come up with the reliable data. And also we found out that there are some also data somewhere where we found out that we really don't know where they come from, where they say in Namibia there are higher rate of child labor. So, but as when we are conducting a situational analysis, we really don't have data on the ground. So perhaps is there an UN perhaps have some either data that they can correct somewhere, or they are usually also maybe using also the Namibia statistic agents So how are they really helping us so that we can have the reliable data, especially when it comes to the child labor? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Now, in my tenure in this office, I've been dealing with HIV and social protection. And we have seen that when the CD4 count goes beyond 200, we have seen that you could virtually classify that person as a person with disability. And then you would give the disability grant in line with the enabling legislation. But once the person recovers and goes beyond the 200 margin, and you see the person is really becoming human again, for the lack of a better word, I'm trying to say the person becomes active, you know. Then you find that the person starts to default on medication simply when the person do not meet no longer the definition as per the enabling legislation for a person with disability who qualifies for disability grant. The disability grant will be stopped. But then you see the person starts to default on medication simply to get back to below 200 CD4 count in order to again qualify for the grant. My question to you is, do you have similar experiences in other countries around the globe, and how did you mitigate such instances? Thank you.
You want to come?
Yes, I have read about that. I know, like in South Africa, that unfortunately I've read about. But as UNAIDS, we don't classify HIV as a disability. So even our advocacy is not that this person should get HIV, the grant because they are HIV positive. It should be because they meet the criteria for vulnerability. So I agree with you. Unfortunately, that is going on. Yeah, but I think for us as UNAIDS, we don't classify just having HIV as a disability. Yeah, so I don't know, again, the discussion within Namibia on how to address that, because again, we don't want to create perverse incentives for people to get sick so that they can receive the grant. So in short, yes, South Africa is another example where we have heard that. Yeah, unfortunately, it's happening. Yes, yeah. Okay. You don't look satisfied with the answer. Yes, yeah. I do think with Will and the others, for a country like Namibia, maybe universal social grants is the way to go. I mean, you guys are quite rich, so I think because then you can cover everyone, and people don't have to get sick in order to receive the grant. So I think, to me, universal grant is the way. You know, the basic income grant is the way to go. Yeah, is the way. Yeah.
I'll probably ask my colleagues to also come in and chip in on the issue of data. But I think there are two points that I just want to highlight. The first one is that we agree in terms of data being an issue. I think a lot of the big national household surveys are probably outdated, but obviously we know the work that NSA is doing in terms of updating and trying to keep up with the regular sort of flow in terms of those surveys. So hope some of them as they are coming in will probably be able to address those data gaps. But I think it's also part of the UNSDCF that we are working on. We've also a dedicated output on data. So we've developed within the UN a concept note. We've set up a team that is looking at how we can also support data from a comprehensive and sort of perspective, looking at all the relevant data set and advising mechanisms to support on that. Then maybe the second point is then to address the specific questions around child labor. I'm not sure the data source that you're saying is highlighted some numbers that you're not familiar with. We could also look at it, but I'm sure NSA, I'm not sure from the labor force survey, Linda is just there, could also help us in terms of responding to that. And unless it could be some of those internationally generated surveys that maybe are conducted by ILO, that maybe are done through certain simulations, not actual data collection. But I think Linda can also come in. I don't know if my colleagues from GN, if there's anyone wants to add.
As for now, on behalf of government, the issue of how do we work with the UN government on the data issue? We have, under the Office of the Prime Minister, we have the NAMBAC, which is established in terms of the National Disaster Risk Management Law. A number of stakeholders, Ministry of Gender, are members of this NAMBAC team. Annually, we collect the Namibia Vulnerability Assessment Committee and Analysis team. So annually, this team goes out and conducts the vulnerability assessment, looking into issues of food security, of nutrition, to an extent of screening, expecting mothers and children for malnutrition. It's quite an extensive exercise. And the data that we generate out of this exercise is huge. NSA is part of this NAMBAC team. They actually lead in providing maps, determining the PSUs, the questionnaire itself. We work very closely with them. This data is then fed into the SADC system, early warning system, where at SADC level, they collect all such kind of data from all member states, and then they generate a SADC synthesis report on food and nutrition security. Going beyond that, there is a steering committee on food and nutrition security policy that is also spearheaded by the Office of the Prime Minister. Under that, there are working groups such as Food and Nutrition Security Monitoring System, where we have created a cluster responsible for early warning system. And under that, we have developed a system, a dashboard system where we want to be collecting data from different stakeholders, different ministries on vulnerability and nutrition that can be monitored for the purpose of informing any actions. So I would like to use this platform to appeal that when we reach out to you and request this kind of data, please provide it unto us. This will also save us as a government. I have seen in the past whereby sometimes we pick up old reports and we report and we give out information out there, making it look like this is recent, whereas recent information and data is available. So there's this dashboard that we can provide information to us of the Prime Minister, will populate it, and then it will be accessible to all the users. The training, I think the training for the use of this dashboard should have taken place either this week or next week. This week, next week. But however, I have seen a lot of excuses, people are not available. If not, we are going to still postpone it. It will take place. It's for our purpose. Thank you. But the UN WFP, is that correct? All right. WFP have been very instrumental in this whole process, as well as UNICEF. UNICEF sponsors us annually in the conduct of the vulnerability assessment exercise, especially because of the nutrition component. But WFP has funded and they have been providing technical support in the development of this system, the dashboard, including the training that is upcoming. We work very closely with them. Thank you.
Great. It looks like we have one final question, and then we'll move on to the discussion of next steps. Last question.
I just wanted to comment on what Jacob had said. At NSA, we don't have a specific survey that is related to child labor, but we do, when we're asking questions on labor, we do ask from the age of 8 years. But then this is later just used as a proxy. But then when we do our analysis, we only start from 15 years and above. So I'm agreeing with Jacob to say that some of these UN agencies, what they do is they simulate what we have done using different types of sources, and then they come out with a number. Just like also the latest figures is we have as the labor force service of 2018. But I'm sure if you go on the ILO website, you will realize that you have figures that are going up to 2024. But then they were just using simulation based on the previous data that they produced. So we don't have a dedicated one, but the plan is to, for the upcoming labor force, probably in 2026, we want to include a module on child labor. So then we'll be doing a stakeholders workshop where to find out what type of indicators they would want in terms of child labor. Yeah, thank you.
Just to add that as the UMPA, as we call it, the United Nations Partnership from Namibia is evolving together with the NDB5. These back and forth discussions with stakeholders have in a way challenged the manner in which we look at deploying our expertise as the UN in Namibia. Sometimes back in the days, consensus was very clear. We are at national level, we're upstream, etc., etc. But as time is moving, we are being challenged to question to what extent can the UN support initiatives that are going at grassroots level, like going downstream, the issue of community engagement, and being very present in that conversation. with an aim to support government in deploying these capacities that we are giving at the national level to where the capacities are needed. Understanding that they are leading the process and we just form as a support team. And already by anticipation, the UN is in the process of developing the second partnership framework, UMPAF 2.0, that is supposed to coincide with NDP 6. And in my mind, I'm already expecting those heated dialogues around the approach, whether it's going to stay up there or there will be a little bit of somewhere in the middle or somewhere on the ground. That is one. With that being said, WFP in particular, we have been challenged given the issues of the food security situation. I don't know how many of you have been following the data where Helen and team are telling us that apparently there's over 1 million population that are now food insecure. It's the highest number we've ever had in history. What do you do when such things come out? Are you stuck upstream, or you are, you need to sit on the table and see what is next? We've heard about children dying in different regions. Omaheke is very good at stakeholder engagement, so you can hear their numbers, but FYI, there are regions that are worse. Commerce, to be specific, is the highest region with the highest malnutrition cases, including fatalities. Not even Omaheke, not even Karango is. It's just that maybe that regional council doesn't talk as much as the other one. So I'm just saying, so as the UN in Namibia, we get them to start looking at how do we vertically or horizontally adjust how we support government to really get to the problems that are on the ground. Of late, the past 3 years, the WFP, we have tried to test the waters of what it looks like to do some sort of direct implementation with what we like to call proof of concept, supporting government to test certain models and see how do they work. Do they work or do they not for the context of Namibia? For the Office of the Prime Minister, for instance, in responding to efficient delivery of benefits to people that are food insecure, in response to cutting expenses and building efficiencies, we try to deploy a cash-based transfer modality for food support, which was for government of Namibia the first time they would do things like that, because here, food security related interventions were in kind. It's bags of food, it's warehouses, it's storage, it's supply chain, and. So we tried that. It had its own ups and downs, weaknesses and wins where possible. And I think we've learned our lessons that we're still learning them, such that by the time of the implementation ended, there was a directive that we further test this model so that we learn again, like stage 2 of lessons learning. I think the beauty that came out of that experience is how beneficiary data management became very central to the priorities of government, and how that got a reinvestment for the program that they've been developing on their own. They call it CBMIS. Initially, beneficiary data management was not the thing. It was like, but now there's been a second eye to how they look at that, looking at it from end to end. Can we register you, manage you, follow you to redemption, and then reconcile so that these things are linked all together, and that way you can build efficiencies. What I also see to be one of the loudest conversations we need to start looking at is the element of productive social protection. It can all be comprehensive, but if it's not productive, then it now looks too consumptive. And anything that you consume and don't build it out, it doesn't have sustainability element. So it is good news that even the team leaders of social protection, they are seeing this concept as very critical. And that is why those same proof of concept have started again. For instance, these marginalized resettlement farms. You find marginalized populations that are in a resettlement farm. How do you, beyond cash that they are receiving, do something productive for them so that they gain some skills and so on? I just wanted to maybe give heads up that 2.0 UMPA, we don't know what that will look like, but we are challenging the UN to start looking at our approach much more comprehensive, considering that the numbers are speaking a very different language. The last time we responded, the highest number was 395,000 people, if I'm not mistaken. And suddenly 1.2 million is on the table. That's a 200% increase. What do you do?
Hey, thank you all. It's great to hear about the excellent data initiatives underway. Hearing about both the needs and also the additional programs that are underway, and that there are additional tools for tracking data. Particularly hear about these cases of positive experiences in expanding data from the grassroots level to really see what's happening and be able to monitor service delivery. So thank you. With that, we'll close this session and move on to the session on next steps. I hand over to Amson.
Thanks, Lana. And I think this has been a wonderful morning session. Just out of curiosity, so Namibia will stick to, for the UN team, you will stick to the PAF and not the DCF? You're doing the cooperation framework. So you're going to transition from, okay, just, okay, thank you. All right, thanks. So my presentation basically is on next steps. Right. Okay, moving. All right. Okay, so as I said earlier, I think during my introductory remarks, why are we here? Right? Why is UNDESA and ECA in Namibia? For you to understand how the UN system operates, some people might know, some might really not know. You have your UN country team, right, which supports the government, works very closely with you guys on the ground. For us, they are the experts. They are here. They know every day what's happening and they follow. But member states also meet in New York, in Geneva, in Rome to discuss issues of development and issues of concern to countries. My sister just mentioned that for the first time, Namibia is facing more than 1 million people who are food insecure, right? This is an issue that's very, very important. Those issues affect many countries and they're discussed at global level, right? They're not just at the country level. So in the UN General Assembly, they take decisions to say, in addition to the resources that are given to each entity to operate at the country level, at the global level, there are also resources that countries can access to build their capacities to address some of these emerging challenges. Hence, when President Genkob wrote last year to the Secretary General requesting for support, how Namibia can better respond to these multiple global crises, he was aware of the UN country team's effort in Namibia, but he's also aware that as a member state, he is eligible to access resources at the global level to complement what is happening at the national level. So we are glad that here we are here to listen and learn from what Namibia is doing. We are also happy to learn and listen to what the UN country team, ably led by the Resident Coordinator's Office, is doing. We'll take some of those lessons back to inform global discussions, as well as discussions at the regional level, which are led by ECA, right? So it's supposed to be a two-way street. Information flows from the ground up to intergovernmental discussions on development issues that happen in UN jurisdictions at the global or regional level, but we also have to come down and listen. So in terms of next step, under this idea, I think you're pretty much aware now why we decided to come up with a project. So the General Assembly said, well, countries are really facing challenges, COVID, cost of living crisis, you name it. So what can be done to help address these challenges? For DESA, ECA, and the Economic Commission for Asia Pacific region, we decided to say, well, we can support countries to rethink their social protection programs, how best they can address rising levels of poverty, hunger, all these issues that we have had, right? So for us, we said our contribution, these three entities, would be to build the capacities or to help contribute countries to countries' efforts to build robust systems that look at sustainable, gender-sensitive, and crisis-responsive social protection policies and programs. So this is what basically my discussion was focusing on when we began this workshop. Obviously, we have expected results. I think I did discuss the expected results that we hope to achieve at the conclusion of this project. How we plan to do it, I did discuss these elements, the how part. But of course, the critical element for us was how do we bring this very beautiful tool, the Multidimensional Poverty Index, to capture the impact of these multiple crises, right? At least it helps countries to put together a better story on how you can utilize your resources and help improve lives and livelihoods in your communities. Hence, we decided to partner with Oxford University, the OFIP program, because we believe they're one of the best tools that can help synthesize all this important information. And for Namibia, you have built a very solid foundation already. You have this index, thanks to the UN country team and the National Statistical Agency. The report is there for you to build on that you produced in 2021. So this is not strange to you as compared to other countries. It's a question of what elements can you really scale up? How can you involve more stakeholders across line ministries, departments, to make sure that this tool, they can understand it and they can use this tool to do whatever they are doing. So going forward, what are the activities that you should expect from the project? The first activity for us, obviously, was interacting with the national government, Mr. Wilbert, and the UN country team. I think we did communicate through the resident coordinator to start the discussions that we received this letter from President Genkop, and we need to do this work. So the first activity had to be an in-country workshop where we could listen to various voices. And thanks, Mr. Director, Mr. Wilbert, for bringing a very wonderful team. It's a wonderful group of people that you managed to put together. So we believe this first important workshop has helped us to think through what we probably should be doing or what we can scale up and beef up. So I think the next thing that we will do, besides the national workshop, as we said, we plan to have all the 4 countries within Africa select one country that you think has really done well in terms of social protection and responding to crisis. We have a country in mind. We have worked with it before, which is Rwanda. But Mr. Wilbert, if you think there is a country where Namibia really feels we should go and learn, we are open to that, right? We are not fixed on just Rwanda, but we believe, given Rwanda's history of a major issue that we all know, how they've managed to really do amazing stuff from where they came from, and the systems that they've put in place, which talk to each other, right? For us, they are very fascinating and countries can learn. Of course, we also do case studies, right? We are also developing a unique statistical tool, which is being led by our office in Bangkok, UNSCAP. We hope, of course, they're using Cambodia and Maldives as case studies, but this statistical tool on social protection issues will be available to all of you to learn as well. If you want to adopt it, you can adopt it. There will be training sessions around those statistical tools. So again, this is something that you continue to receive going forward. We'll have a policy mapping exercise, diagnostic workshops, and of course, costed participatory roadmaps. There's more work to be done with the 30+ programs that you have. Have you done a costed roadmap covering all of them, right? I'm sure the ministry just allocates money, but I'm not sure if there is any work that has been done to look at the entire suite of these programs and see how much are you spending as a government. What are the issues that I think they came up during the last 2 days. So I think what we should mention here, we will have 2 regional workshops. One will be organized by the Economic Commission for Africa. I don't know where Mamusa will take you, but again, we will bring all the project countries in addition to other countries that we might bring on board as well, for you to learn and continue to share experiences. I think it's an ongoing discussion. It will not end here. And then the second regional workshop is to also take African countries who are engaged to Bangkok. Hopefully our colleagues in ESCAP would want us to have the Asia experience, the African experience in one room where we can all learn from each other. So again, we'll continue to work with you guys until I think we get to implement these important peer-to-peer learning activities. So output 1.1 for us in terms of how we organize our work under the program is this first workshop. As I mentioned, I think on day one, we also do a case study for each country, right? You have 30 plus programs. I don't know what the government really thinks or would want to benefit from the project, but we want to undertake a case study. We'll finance it. We intend to hire a national consultant. We'll put together terms of reference. We'll share those terms of reference with the government. You decide, look at them. We'll share the terms of reference with the UN country team through the resident coordinator's office. I did talk to my brother David here. Would want to see the issues that he talked about on the HIV/AIDS component to make sure that they're also adequately reflected in whatever is produced at the end of the study. So, my brother, we'll burden your team. It's up to you to define the parameters of this study. What is it that you want to learn, given all the activities that you are undertaking under social projection? Of course, it has to be related to our overall objective, but I think we are open to suggestions. And once we can zero in on what the country wants, we will put together the terms of reference. We will advertise. Ideally, we will want to hire a national person to do this work. But if you feel like there is probably some expert who is in South Africa or in Zambia, we probably can be flexible and give you that. But we always prefer to hire national consultants so that at least they stay in the country and can continue to interact with you. So that's something that we want to do very soon. We believe this study should be produced as soon as possible. We might have to engage that person before the end of the year. So if you guys know people who can do this work, you can always make suggestions and we can engage that individual. Of course, the individual will have to work closely with the UN country team and the Ministry of Gender, right? So this is a resource that the project is providing to the country. We also hope at the end of the project, we'll have a technical report on how countries are responding to the global crisis using the MPI as a tool, right, to address the multiple vulnerabilities. So we'll have a technical report. So at the end of the 3 years, this should come, and we hope that technical report will again further inform you in terms of your decision-making processes at the country level. Again, in terms of technical capacities, DESA and ECA will organize a follow-up mission to Namibia. Maybe one of our colleagues or two of our colleagues might come down and have further discussions with the ministry and other interested stakeholders. Basically, I think that will help to put these ideas together. Maybe you might want that discussion to focus on the 3 groups that are identified as marginalized, who are the hardest to reach, maybe to come up with better recommendations on how you can reach them, but it's up to the ministry pretty much to give us guidance on where the focus should be. Second output, basically our colleagues in Bangkok, UNESCAP, they're also developing a user-friendly prognostic web-based platform. This will be accessible to any country. We'll open it up. It will not be monopolized by 1 or 2 countries. Again, Namibia can take a look at that and see if it's something of interest to you. When it comes to issues of providing coherence, coordination, integration issues under the project, the first workshop for policymakers, we have, I think, done a wonderful job. We will have the 1 regional workshop or study tour that ECA will lead us. Again, they will let us know when they want to do that. Then there will be a toolkit that is going to be developed. Again, you need to understand your stakeholders, right, in Namibia when it comes to issues of social protection programs. So we want to have that landscape identified, and this toolkit we believe can contribute to that. And then, of course, we will conduct another workshop where countries can come together, the 4 countries, plus ECA is another project of social protection, but mostly covering North Africa and the Middle East. We also want some of those countries to be part of that so that you can also learn when we organize this next regional workshop. Otherwise, thank you, and I'm available to answer any questions or clarify anything that you might have. But we will continue to work with you through the Resident Contest Office and our focal ministry, the Ministry of Gender. And I think thank you all for this wonderful 2.5 days. So, having said that, I know Mr. Gulbad will come and deliver the final remarks. But Lana has a few questions. There's a short survey. Basically, we are at the end of any activity that we do, we just have to assess or learn lessons from the responses that you're going to give us. So Lana, you can come over. And then after that, Mr. Gulbad will have the floor to give us the final remarks. Thank you.
I'm on the screen, but it doesn't, like it shows here, but
I think we didn't start that one. Let me just set it up.
Great, thank you all. This is a brief survey that we share at the end of each of our workshops. Please give us your feedback, tell us what you think. I'm just gonna leave this QR code up for like 5 minutes. Feel free to scan, come up if you're having trouble seeing it, to scan, and you'll be able to take it on your phone in your own time. So I'll just leave that up for a few minutes.
Colleagues, there is almost nothing much to say after your valuable inputs that you have contributed since Wednesday. We had our director for UNAIDS, David Chimpanta. I almost say it's a band, yes. And of course, he did the opening on behalf of the country resident. And then we had Amson Simbanda, of course, giving us a workshop objectives on the tropical crisis. That was on Wednesday. He further continued to have a discussion on the importance of multidimensional poverty in respect to sustainable development goals, and also just relating the multidimensional poverty measure to that of the economic measure or monetary measure. Of course, we also had our own comprehensive social protection policy, and of course followed by a case study or questions. And really the owner of the movie, the actor, was Monica, who really gave us a lot of insight into this multidimensional poverty animal, and how we can effectively use it in our development agenda. She also indicated in implementing or designing our policies, social protection policy, the importance of mapping of the actors or key players in this exercise. And of course, the different uses of MPI, comprising of targeting, budgeting, as well as coordination, and how this tool could actually be useful for national policies. For me, this is, I was almost complaining to Anson to say, how do you actually give us all this information in 3 days? Because the poor Monica was trying to cover as much as possible. And to an extent that some details she can't really thoroughly explain to us because the time was just, and she was even cutting off some questions to say, no, I need to continue, I need to finish. And I've seen that, I think, in most multidimensional poverty meetings that I have, or trainings that I have attended, the time is never sufficient. So I invite that perhaps in future engagements, these are technical people, very technical. As I said, they have been involved in the development of the policy itself, most of them, the majority. And therefore, they really need to thoroughly understand the MPI. Of course, the colleague from Namibia Statistics Agency would want more. I think they are already conversant with the statistical aspect of how to compute it. But we are just on a user perspective. We would appreciate more engagement in terms of capacity building. But we also learned that although our social protection programs are quite diverse, it appears we still need to work in terms of targeting and ensuring that they are efficient. And also the proper alignment of resources might be needed, especially where we need to look at the aspect of demographic impact. And of course, there we will then speak of the data and how we can efficiently or effectively get statistics that informs us where to go for specific interventions. That part of the training, I would therefore ask that perhaps you consider another session, because of course at one point we need to brief our leaders, and you can only brief if you have a better understanding. And also, it's not only for briefing of the leaders, but also for effective implementation. So in the final analysis, I want to think that this workshop was really insightful to all of us. And that is proven by the fact that exercises that we conducted here, all of us got 100%. Yes, you got 100%. So with these few words, I therefore ask that you still remain in Swakopmund invest a little bit of your resources in Swakopmund and only drive tomorrow morning to your respective destinations. And I therefore thank you, colleagues, for coming, and thank you, the UN family team, for really considering time to come to Namibia for those that came from New York. It's only New York. Eh? Oh, Addis Ababa. You see, Addis Ababa is very historic in Namibia. And of course, the colleagues from Window. But I want to thank one lady. When we had a meeting with the team from UN, and we made a commitment that we can pull off this meeting as soon as you want it, because we are ready. That commitment was made because I know I have able-bodied people and capable. So first of all, I want to thank Martha. Martha was really the person behind. She was very inviting colleagues. She was responding to Melan's questions. She was doing the booking and all. But Martha does not work alone. And it shows. She's sitting next to a person. That person is her support team. First support, and it's healthy. And Healthy and Martha, once they have done whatever they have to do, write letters, draft, whatever, there's another Martha, the lady in green. Is that green? I'm colorblind. So that's the lady that all the directorates, the whole directorate trouble her for anything that has to get in or out of the directorate. So I really thank you very much, the team, for that commitment and pulling off this almost impossible assignment. But overall, colleagues, all of you, I really thank you for making time. I know the invitation came in a bit late, and some of our team couldn't attend because we couldn't change within the allowed time frame. So, but we do apologize for those that cannot attend, that couldn't attend. With those few words, I thank you, and I declare the meeting or the workshop closed. But before I close,
before you close, let's give Monica an opportunity to say a few words.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I almost forgot. You see, your face was not visible to me. That's why.
No worries. No. No, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for the engagement. And really sorry I was not there, but I hope soon I can meet Namibia. I have always wanted to go, and I haven't been able to. So thank you very much for everything, for these 2.5 really engaging and a learning process for everyone. And I hope you go back home soon and see you soon. And please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or anything. I have a couple of emails to reply to some of you, and I will do it today or on Monday. Don't worry. Thank you.
All right. All right. I think there's a. All right. So I think we are good. I think if you still need the survey, we can put the code again. But otherwise, now we want your best smiles. Yeah, somebody wants to take a group picture. I don't know where we are going to do it. Outside. So Melanie is going to lead us. So please make sure you are dressed nicely, you smile, and we're good to go. Thanks, everyone, and see you again soon. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes.
Look. Hello? Hello?